You may not remember that last year, before elections, there was a massive leak, a massive hack of the voters registration database, and a lot more underneath the Commission on Elections. After that time period, we actually had the National Privacy Commission created by law. The founding commissioner, this is the group that will be in charge of dealing with things like theft, data theft, lots of other things that deal with cybercrime, lots of other things that deal with privacy. The founding commissioner of that is former DOST. He's former DOST executive, Mon Liboro, now the founding commissioner of the National Privacy Commission. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Well, let's focus first. You know, this is a huge case that really didn't get much attention when it happened, but essentially anyone who registered to vote had their private details, their birth dates, their passports, some of them their fingerprints open and searchable on the internet. What did you do? When did you start your investigation, and what did you find?
Well, of course, the commission itself was organized only in March this year, though the law has been there since 2012. It's only this March in 2016 that we got organized. And initially, it was just the three of us, myself and my two deputies. So this was really a baptism of fire for the commission. And barely 2 weeks after we were appointed, we are hit with this now so-called hashtag Common
Hashtag Common Good reminder. Yes.
We were, you know, we communicated immediately with the COMELEC, with the Commission on Elections, again inquiring about this matter, and they also replied to us. And from there on, motu proprio, we initiated an investigation into this matter. Of course, I think a few weeks after that, there's an independent civil society organization, the Foundation for Media Alternatives, who also, you know, lodged the official complaint on the matter. So we acted on it, and it took us around about five hearings. We have 5 investigative hearings, and we also have a clarificatory hearing, because we initially came out with our initial findings and gave them all the opportunity to reply to our findings. So again, well, ultimately before the year end, we came out with our decision. It took some time because massive data breaches are really quite, it takes time to investigate these things.
Correct.
Even in the United States, even in Australia. They have a case there, the Ashland this controversial, sensational case involving an adult website. It took them 2.5 years before they came up with a final decision on that. But we deemed it as the commission that we really targeted that before year end of 2016 that we come up with a decision. So we finally did.
And you announced the decision. Now,
Yes.
your decision was you found COMELEC chairman and Andres Bautista criminally liable for this heat. Can you tell us why and what were the significant findings?
Well, first, the National Privacy Commission has actually found the Commission on Elections violative, or they violated the Data Privacy Act of 2012. And we recommended the criminal prosecution of Chairman J. Andres Bautista on account of gross negligence, citing Section 26, which provides that accessing sensitive personal information through negligence is actually punishable. So after a thorough investigation, and we actually found out that this was really caused by it's a direct result of a failure to implement and execute a top-to-bottom approach in data protection, the lack of a clear governance policy when it comes to data security and data privacy, handling sensitive personal information, and basically the hands-off policy that Chairman Andres Bautista took as chairman, as head of agency, that that brought us to this. And as head of agency, as head of a national agency, it is your primary duty to implement national laws.
Yes.
The Data Privacy Act of 2012 is a national law. It is a we are convinced that it's a self-executing, executory law,
Right.
and actually the provisions already provide the intent of which is really to protect personal information. It's all in the law. It's a comprehensive law.
And
It's
this
a
is really-
global law. It's a
Yeah.
world-class law.
Yeah.
Taken from many of its provisions were taken from international standards, like those promulgated by the European Union and also
Yes.
APEC. So this is a world-class law.
In doing this, you're essentially now defining what this law
Yes.
is for everyone. And these seem very harsh. This seems like a criminal liability
Yes.
for the Comelec chairman seems harsh. He himself has reacted by saying, why did you file against the IT people whose job it really is? I mean, why him?
I'll give you a very brief digest of the law.
Please.
Again, it's long, but let's just talk about the title.
Okay.
It's an act protecting individual personal information
Yes.
in ICT systems, in government, and the private sector. The act itself defines what the law is all about. This is all about protecting individual personal information. So the law, all right, states the rights of ordinary citizens, of individuals over their personal data.
Yes.
And at the same time, it ensures that it actually gives out, spells out the obligations of those who process the data.
Right.
It's a rights-based law,
Right.
and also a law that spells out obligations of people who process data. Comelec is one of the biggest processor of personal data in the country. So this law is actually speaking to them. It speaks directly to them, and they should have recognized that this law is actually, again, addressing their role
Right.
as a personal controller. Imagine, Maria, they're the only agency in the country that's actually that has the privilege to collect our biometric data.
Yes.
So, in between elections, this is practically what they do.
Yes.
They collect and process, they do registration, they collect and process our information, and even looking at it and trying to look at it simplistically, when we vote, it is but an alteration, an addition to the fields that what you provide.
Right.
So Maria, what did you vote during this year? Ito
Yes.
yun. So they're basically just updating your personal information whenever you do exercise your right to vote. So this is very into that. It is in this context that we're looking at this case.
Did you find an appreciation of the great responsibility of on the Comelec side, of their responsibility on that data, and to the public who gave that data? So when you did your investigation,
yes,
yeah, because I guess part of what I'm trying to understand, and we see this from Filipinos themselves, we don't quite yet have a true understanding of how important privacy is.
Correct.
And I wonder if you found that inside Comelec when you were doing your investigation. Is there an awareness of the great responsibility? Because we were horrified when we saw the leak. And when we did that story, we didn't see a great outcry, neither from the Commission on Elections nor from the public.
Sadly, we found out that, that consciousness is severely lacking.
So in a way, that
And
this is part of what you
That's
need
right.
to do,
And,
right?
and even to contend that we're just talking about minimum standards here, coming from the biggest data collector in the country, to talk about minimum standards is
Right.
quite bothersome. And and to talk about that there's no standards, and it's really bothersome. And people have entrusted their personal data to them, and to realize that the organization itself do not have a clear governance policy on how on how they handle data inside the Comelec, or even how they reprocess some of our data, coming up with new products like e-registro. This could be laudable, but again, the lack of a clear governance policy inside has actually exposed the millions of data to abuse.
Could you tell normal people what the scope of that data hack
Oh,
was?
let me, so that I won't miss out on anything. Here. The data breach in the Comelec is contained in several databases. First, the Precinct Finder web application, 75 million records. It contains the voter's complete name, the date of birth, the gender, the civil status, the address, precinct number, the birthplace, disability, if any, the voter identification number, the voter registration record number, and some other registration details. They have an application called the Post Finder, all right, which also contains another 1.3 million records. These are the records of those who registered for the overseas voting.
Yes.
And for criminals, this is really more, this is meatier.
Yes.
They have the verified name, the date of birth, gender, civil status, the post-registration, passport information with number and expiry date,
Right.
taxpayer identification number, email address, mailing address, the spouse's name, the complete name of the voter's mother and father, voter's address in the Philippines and abroad, post or country of registration, and other, like the profession, the sector, the height, the weight, identifying marks, biometric description. They were explaining this to us. It was not really the biometrics, but some certain descriptions.
Right.
Voting history, the mode of voting, and other textual reference. Plus, this probably this has escaped some of the news before, the firearms ban database. It contains 800, almost 1 million personal data records of those who applied for firearms ban, 20,485 records of firearm serial numbers.
Wow.
So those who own guns, where they live,
Right.
the firearms they possess, and the serial numbers of all
So
these firearms.
just offhand, just when you're talking about this, there's the potential of, well, they know where people live, they know who they are, they know it could be credit card fraud. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be saying it, but the potential for fraud of anything on a large scale, and OFWs not being aware that.
Some of this, well, again, if you do normal banking or online banking, these are the security questions they ask, like your mother's name or your father's name. And unfortunately, when you try to mitigate or the remedial measures, for example, like I've always thought about, sometimes whenever somebody breaks into your email, just tell you to change your password. But unfortunately, when you spew out all this data in the dark web, I cannot change my wife's name.
Correct.
I cannot change my mother's and dad's
right.
name. Your birthday, you
Right.
cannot change that.
Right.
So it's all out there.
Right.
All right? Your password you can change.
Yes.
Some probably IDs you can renew. But these names, how can you change these names?
I guess now, when this moves forward, how can we protect ourselves? This is a huge leak. Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves?
Again, and it goes down to the person. Personal data hygiene. We really call for the day. We encourage everyone to start again being aware and start practicing. This is what I call the data security or data privacy hygiene, like changing your passwords regularly. Of course, being aware of all this malware, being aware of that not clicking on suspicious attachments to your email. Be aware of many other modus, like phishing, this thing where they actually use your email. And malware is very, very important, a very huge concern now.
Yes.
Because they attach it, and once you open it, it's now embedded into your system.
Yes.
But and these are the things, no, that we can do. These are the things that we can do to fight it ourselves.
Right, right.
That's why I'm always very. The law is very, if you call it harsh, on government, because it is the government's role to protect the citizens. We cannot leave the fighting to our own citizens
Right.
in this regard. So the problem is so huge, that the government should set an example. Government should take the lead.
This commission on elections, this particular one, is the second one that handled automated elections, right?
Yes.
So you would assume the first one would stumble through it. Sorry, I'm just right. So the first one just implements it, but the second one would begin to put these digital safeguards in place, because the other reason, they are the only ones who gets everyone's
Correct.
data.
Correct.
Did you find any evidence that this second automated elections, that the kind of safeguards that should have been put in place, that they knew and were aware of?
We recognize, of course, that there were technical security measures that were in place. No? Although they were wanting, obviously, proof of this is really after the incident, when upon also the advice of the DICT, they implemented far better measures. And for example, the website now is being hosted by the DICT, something that they did not do before,
Right.
because they thought that they were exempted from Administrative Order 39, requiring government to have their websites hosted on the DICT.
Right.
And the DICT, has this bragging rights that they, those that they have been hosting have not experienced a breach since the time that they are hosting these government websites that submitted to them. So yes, there are many measures, like additional firewalls and encryption, that they only did after the breach.
Right.
Now, again, let me clarify, Maria. Again, the COMELEC is not being faulted here just
Right.
because they were hacked.
Yes.
And in the future, for our audience, the commission will not go after you because somebody hacked into your website. What we do is actually, so whenever you get hacked, the privacy commissioner will not go there to ask you how many millions you spent on hardware, on software, or who are your IT superstars that you got to, as consultants. It's basically that, did you follow the requirements of the law, like appointing
Right.
a data protection officer, conducting a privacy impact assessment. Did you put all this in writing so that everyone can be aware and conscious about their roles in the organization?
Right.
And are you prepared for breach? I mean, that's you are asking them to be prepared for breach.
Well, what about even measures post-breach? Do
That's
you
right.
notify the people who's...
And that is a very, very important element, because at the end of the day, what you want to do here is really to notify people so that they
can protect themselves.
protect
if, when,
themselves
yes.
also. And again, it's also their time to do the fighting, so
Right.
to speak. So that's very, very critical, and very, very important. So today, COMELEC is learning it the hard way. Yeah.
Interesting. So were any of the people, I mean, we had a list of 54 million voters, or
55.
55,
yes.
55, 56
Yes,
million, right?
distinct
so
records.
So the records of the voters, were any voters notified that their data had been compromised?
We came up with a compliance order in June, and again, what we told COMELEC to do, what we instructed them to do was to come up with full-page ads. It's
Yes.
something that announcing the incident and the potential records that were breached, and we also instructed them to put up a voter care center for people just in case they want to inquire. We're quite specific on the OFWs, or the Filipinos overseas.
Yes.
We asked them if they could really, we instructed them to inform each of them. So that each voter, or each overseas voter whose records were breached, should even possess something to show as proof that they were subject, or
That someone else
they
could
were
be
victimized.
using,
Someone
yeah.
else, they can be stopped at the airports,
Right.
and at least they will have something to show. The COMELEC submitted, and one more thing with the gun ban, with those who were
Yes, that's
affected
right.
by the firearms, we told the COMELEC to again also inform all the gun owners of what happened. COMELEC submitted a compliance report before the year end, and they expressed the difficulties in informing those affected by the precinct finder or the overseas voters, and they're trying to they reported to us that I think out of the 1.3 million affected, they've only reached around 100,000. We're still evaluating their
Wow.
report.
Yes.
But again, it's really painful, Maria, because again, this is the lessons we learn when these things happen. Response will always be more difficult than prevention.
Yes.
Response will always be more expensive than mitigating
Yeah.
these things.
Actually,
And,
if you don't have safeguards in place, then you certainly don't have a crisis plan after, right? And this was a huge
Precisely.
crisis.
Absolutely, yes. This is what, that is absolutely precisely what happened here. So, again, as a test case, such a major breach, acknowledged that was one of the biggest or largest breach on a government-held database. So yes, and unfortunately for all the victims, including you, we will be, potentially feeling the effects of this in the years to come.
In the years to come. So, Chairman Bautista says he is going to contest that
Yes.
they're filing a motion for reconsideration.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, of course, that is right. But again, the law also spells out the procedure. That's why we filed this information with the Department of Justice. It's now really in the hands, or the ball is in the court of the Department of Justice on what to do with the case. And for us, I'm really looking forward, the COMELEC really, firming up its data privacy and security posture.
Yes.
I learned I was quite happy yesterday because I got a letter from the COMELEC, and they're about to conduct a 3-day seminar involving COMELEC executives on the law.
Yes.
I mean, and I already instructed our staff to come up with to help them with the program. So by all means, if you can help them and handhold them through the process, we'll be very happy to do that.
Let's pull out into a broader landscape
Sure.
now beyond that. How would you describe the state of the Philippines, both not just the public sector, not just government, but the private sector, in terms of this is relatively new, right?
Correct.
I mean, if you think about it, say when Rappler began in 2012, it was all about the empowerment of the internet,
Correct.
and somehow 2016 became the year of the dangers and the threats of the internet.
Yes.
How prepared are Filipino companies, are Filipinos to deal with this now?
I think we should all band together.
Yes.
Like a powerful company, media company like Rappler, influential platforms like Rappler would be very, very critical in developing an enlightened populace. A populace that can discern which is fake news and real
Yes.
news.
Social media. Yes.
Yes, a populace that can discern which is bigotry and which is the right thing. A populace that can also distinguish if they're being manipulated
Yes.
towards a certain stand, and a discerning populace, because again the march towards digital cannot be stopped.
Yes.
The internet, you told it yourself, you're just young, 2012, it's very in the nascent stage.
Yes.
All right, so my mission, which we outlined with the National Privacy Commission, is really my priority is to build this culture of privacy for the population, Many people say nga, Filipinos, we don't have that concept of privacy, no? But I
Yes.
don't believe that. No?
Yes.
Privacy is not there.
Yes.
Privacy is important.
Right.
No? And whenever people would say, privacy, really is that, you think that privacy is not dead, people are, give me your password nga. Oh, nobody has given me their password.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think privacy is not an issue, can I get your password?
Yes.
But nobody, that's somehow, everyone, of course, would cherish and relish their privacy. So the culture of privacy, an enlightened populace, it's really building the superstructure again of society built on that.
Yes.
Culture will be very, very important.
Yes.
So if we can have responsible data citizens, digital citizens, now, Maria, probably our children will also, hopefully, also develop the kind of good practice or best practice or kind of discernment. So that's the only way that we can influence the next generation. So, but we are starting at a very low base,
Yes.
Maria. So
You're-
it take a lot of effort.
Well, the other part that was interesting to me is as early as 2013, the United States, I think it was Ambassador Negroponte who identified cybersecurity,
Correct.
cyber threats as the top threat that he felt
Yeah.
that the world feels today. That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
And for us, I think we're just starting. 2016 again seemed to be the year where the dangers of the internet surface.
But fortunately, for the country, and I've been saying this, at least the trinity of our cyber response is here. Meaning, when I say
That's
the
good.
trinity, it's the passage of the Cybercrime Prevention Act in 2012, the passage of the Data Privacy Act of 2012, and the passage creating the DICT.
Right.
This I call it the trinity of cyber protection because at least the cast is complete.
Yes.
The laws are in place.
Right.
So it's
But
really
laws are very different from execution.
precisely.
Right. So I'll
Precisely.
go back to how would you assess? So there are new industries, new expertise. Some of the cybersecurity, for example, last year I was speaking to somebody who was practicing cybersecurity
Yeah.
here, and they were saying that there were so few experts at it
Correct,
in the
yeah.
Philippines.
Yeah.
I mean, where are we here now, and what would you like to see happen? You came from DOST.
That's right.
Right? How prepared, if you're a young graduate now, I mean, what do you see needs to happen?
Well, looking at the situation, for example, let's talk about privacy, the privacy sector.
Sure.
That's why we're actually batting for the appointment designation of what we call data protection officers.
Yes.
in
You
the
just
country.
announced this today, right?
That's
That-
right.
yeah.
And you know what? DPOs are actually, they're internationally recognized type of career or a designation.
Right.
In fact, I just read an article that the world needs around 75,000 data protection officers. But what we're trying to impress here, Maria, is that cyber protection, data privacy, and data security measures are not only for the geeks.
Yes.
It is something, again, that should be second nature to any organization.
Yes.
That's why we're trying to simplify things. We're trying to simplify the law for everyone to understand. If we make it look difficult, and then they will fall prey to probably lawyers saying that you have to get us to be able to comply, or IT, so-called IT experts, or suppliers that say we can protect your
Correct.
systems end to end.
Correct.
But really, this is really about recognizing data subjects' rights and your obligations
Yes.
as a personal control. So we're trying to simplify things. That's why
Yes.
my call. You want to jumpstart your privacy programs. 5 things: appoint your data protection officer.
Okay.
Second is know your risks. Conduct
Yes.
a privacy impact assessment.
Know
That's
your
not
risks.
rocket science. Just ask who probably might be interested in our data here. Check how is my organization prepared. Do we have? And third, write your plan.
Yeah.
Write your plan. Come up with your create your privacy management plan. It's a
Yeah.
simple plan. Included also would be again who gets to handle the data, who gets to how do we collect it, and
Yeah.
if somebody calls us, how do we respond to them? And fourth, be accountable.
Yeah.
We have prepared the National Privacy Commission is preparing has prepared a checklist. We call it a matrix of some sort,
Yeah.
where organization can actually check their compliance. No?
Yes.
So pinapadali na namin to talaga, Maria. And fifth,
Yeah.
be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared for breach, because then
I
again,
was going to say, where's your
that's
crisis plan?
that's it.
Yeah,
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 be prepared and be prepared for breach, because
Yes.
you know, we're not saying that, you know, we're punishing the hack, no, and not the hacker, but again, our call is for everyone to be prepared, because it might happen to you anytime.
Yes. Yes.
Hope it does not, but the reality is it's out there.
And I guess that one of the things that I don't think was appreciated before is that when you ask for people's data,
Yes.
you have to, that implicit, you have to protect it, right? And I
That's
think
right.
that's the basic principle behind that. When
Very,
you're
yes,
going-
correct. So it's got to, you know, a lot of changing of the mindset
Yes.
of people, especially those who collect data. Sometimes, most in government, you know, thought that, you know, they have this God-given right to collect data, you know, and give us all these long forms, you know. But people also must be very, very conscious now about the information they share.
Absolutely.
It's
You
really a
mentioned fake
challenge,
news. I mean,
no?
that's another part. So I guess one of the points I'm interested in is human nature is human nature. Our carelessness, our biases, cognitive
That's right.
biases. How do you expect to change human nature in a short period of time?
It's very difficult, Maria, diba? Parang used to be, it's more expensive to keep things, it's more expensive to keep, to make public things. You go to media is expensive,
Yes,
diba?
yes.
It's cheaper to hide it, diba?
Yes.
But nowadays, it's much cheaper to make things public.
Yes.
Diba? Diba? It's much cheaper. Labas mo lang. Dati ang hirap nun eh. Kasi we do traditional media. To make
Yes.
things public before requires
needed to
you
go
need
through
to
that
go through a
mediator.
lot.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
And now it's reversed.
Yes.
No? The situation is reversed. It's now more cheaper to make things public
Yes.
than to make things private. No? But ultimately, really, it's really the data holder, of course, that should also exercise discretion. But that's something that, but of course, no, yun yung talagang malaking goal natin. No? If everybody would be aware, of course, raising conscious. But then again, that's really it's a generational
It is.
goal.
Yes.
No, that means you have to involve schools. You have to
Yes.
involve, again, the superstructure. Diba? You have to change the curriculum probably. It's a generational thing, no? But slowly but surely, I think government is government has recognized this.
Yes.
No? We have instituted the laws. A lot of laws that were passed in the previous decades are now being updated to become, you know, more attuned to the times. No? So, you know, 21st, like the Data Privacy Act, the way I described it, it's a 21st century law for 21st century concerns and crimes. You cannot address 21st century crimes, Maria, by thinking 20th century or practices that we've done in the
Right.
20th century. You will never succeed that way.
It's so interesting. There was one thing, former Madeleine Albright, at one point, there was a group
yeah.
of people talking about this, and she actually said that the greatest problem, these are already developed countries, right? The greatest problem that they face is that you have 21st century problems, data, technology, being exercised by a 20th century bureaucracy using 19th century laws. I mean, so it's kind of...
really, yeah, that's really, and I think there should really be a foot race towards updating many of our laws, again, to be attuned to the times, but really more the retooling and upgrading human capacity to deal with all this. No?
So to close, I mean, National Privacy Commission, this is the first big case. You've taken it. You have a huge mandate, I guess. What will people come to you for? What do you need from the people? What do you offer? What can they offer to you?
Oh, of course, before that, as a summing up, you know, the lessons we learned here is for everyone.
Please, yes.
That data has value.
Oh my
All right.
gosh, we need to
Data-
say that. Yeah.
Data
yeah.
will outlive all hardware, software, computer systems. It will outlive anyone here.
The digital exhaust. you
Yes,
leave
it will
behind.
outlive. So
Yes.
you've got to, you've got to handle data the way you handle money, That way you
Yes.
handle something that you love, and it's not something that you give away. And secondly, again, data privacy is not always about technical security. It's an organization's awareness
Yes.
of data subjects' rights
Yes.
and their obligation towards citizens. So privacy is a right. Collecting data is not. All right. And really, again, it is government's role to protect its citizens. And we couldn't let our citizens do the fighting on their own. And of course, for organizations, again, this is we are not out to scare, or to scare our companies and our citizens. It's a matter of, again, applying the principles provided in the law of protecting our data subjects' rights. Be sure to document what you do in complying with the law. And again, lastly is the commission is here. Our mandate is that we regulate, we advise, we mediate. Okay, if you have a problem with somebody who collected your information, we mediate, we investigate, we rule. Again, in cases involving like
Fantastic.
this one,
Yeah.
we enforce. All right, and we don't want to go into that,
Okay.
because, again, as an organization, we are really prioritizing prevention and mitigation this time, because, again, that's just like what our experience now is showing. It's far more expensive to do response, to respond to a breach. It's more practical, far less expensive to address it, preventing it and mitigating potential breaches than responding to it. And the commission is here. Of course, we have our website where they can also. We have a Facebook page too. They have a website. You can also leave your if you have an inquiry, if you have a complaint. Come February, we will be launching our Know Your Rights campaign. Hope
Fantastic.
Rappler can
Of course,
help
we
us
will
there.
help. Yes, absolutely.
We Know Your Rights campaign, because you were telling, that with a very low awareness base, we have to. For example, I'll just give an example. I was just speaking with the Privacy Commissioner of Hong Kong. You know how many complaints they get a year?
Yes.
22,000
Wow.
complaints a year. So these are people involved, getting from the complaints from direct marketing group,
Yes.
from telemarketers, or credit card fraud. So now we want to let the people know that you have rights. And but also this year we are also, again, emphasizing also compliance. So we're also addressing just like we came up with a notice today on organizations should be appointing or designating a data protection.
Absolutely.
That is really the first stage.
Yes.
If you don't have a data protection officer, then I would assume that you're not quite aware yet
Yes.
of the provisions of the law.
Yes.
But if you have one, you have an immediate point of contact. We know there's a champion.
Yes.
At least that's a very the minimum. We can rest assured that there's a champion within an organization. So, Rappler, you have to pick
We-
you have.
we
I think
do.
you'll do
We
that.
do.
Your data protection officer. That would be the first step in actually committing to comply with the law.
Well, the problem, of course, is that as companies shift to big data,
Yes.
without something like that. So we're really in this transitional phase as a country, as a nation, as organizations. So to go back to the COMELEC, it seemed like Commissioner Bautista was saying it's unfair. So if the rules have changed in this period of churn, right, when things are changing so fast, is it fair? I mean, on one hand, if you make an example, that sets a tone for
Yes.
execution of the law, right? But at the same time, if it wasn't clear to them before, is it fair? I'm just throwing the
all right.
question,
Yeah,
right?
good question you asked that. But again, the lessons that we are trying to reiterate to everybody, complying with the law is a top-to-bottom approach, hinged on compliance, a top-to-bottom approach that is hinged on complying with the Data Privacy Act of 2012.
Yes.
it's very important that the heads of agencies set the tone
Yeah.
in all this. And the law is quite specific, on the responsibilities of the heads of agencies.
Yes.
So again, probably the law contemplates that for us, you were saying, it's a long grind. How do we, as a nation, adapt quickly? The leadership
Yeah,
must exercise their responsibilities, because that's the fastest way.
Yes.
That's the only way, actually, because you cannot expect this to come from below, right? I like your short story about Madeleine Albright, because these are not 21st century reality.
Yes.
So whenever I think that's the challenge to the leaders of today.
Yes.
Are they applying 21st century approaches and measures?
Yes.
Or are they still, frozen in the 20th century, or trying to revive
Yes.
the old systems, and thinking that way? Because again, sadly, if you are going to apply 20th century solutions to 21st century concerns,
It just won't work.
it won't work. It won't work.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know we'll be speaking a lot more in the coming days and months.
Anytime, Maria.
We've been speaking with Raymond. It's so funny. We've been going through all of these now. But Commissioner Liboro, who is the founding head of the National Privacy Commission, has just laid out the findings, a landmark case. It is the largest data hack in the Philippines that Filipinos have been subjected to, the aspirations for global standards, and also laying out what organizations and Filipinos need to do to keep up to date with 21st century problems and crime. Thanks so much for joining us, Commissioner.
You're welcome. And
See you guys soon. I'm Maria Ressa. Continue. We've got, let me just, before we go, at Privacy PH, go there, Twitter account of the National Privacy Commission. See you guys soon.
thank you.